Here.
Weber via Zoom.
Here.
Jardin is absent. Reese? Here. And Mayor Sheeby.
Here.
You do have a quorum of the Reno City Council.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're going to send it right back to you, Mr. Clerk, sorry, for public comment.
Certainly, we'll get there. Just one moment. Madam Mayor, our first item today is public comment. It should be noted for those in the audience that comments are to be addressed to the mayor and council as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the council's agenda. Please note that the council may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Lastly, while in this room, please be respectful. Warnings will be issued by the presiding officer if there is disruptive behavior. You will be asked to leave chambers if the behavior continues. First up, we have George Eddie Lorton, followed by Terry Kaleznick, followed by Alexis Motorex.
For the record, my name is George Eddie Lorton, running for Reno Mayor. It's been a while. Nice to see you. Well, I wanted to have some words about this up-and-coming position that became vacated. In the past, the city's had a history. Instead of an elected position, they do appointments. They brought it to a whole new art form. So now it happened with Mr. Bobsian, happened with Devin, and then it turns it into the fake gift of incumbency. So now when it comes to the pet peeve projects and stuff like that, we spend endless money. If it comes to art or different things, endless money. So this is the way to bring the public in politics, and I think we should hold a special election, and it's cheap now that we have mail-in ballots. It's only one ward, so therefore these people can have a say on who it is instead of another yes person. So I hope that we will do a special election and an elected position, and then all of a sudden they'll come back and say they want to save money. Well, I don't think leaving the public out of this process is worth saving money over. So I hope we're going to do a special election in an elected position, and then they'll make the argument sometimes to where they'll say that, well, they appoint committee members and stuff like that. Yes, they do. Those are appointed positions. But in an elected position, I think it's extremely important to elect someone in an elected position. Then the voice of the people are heard. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Eddie.
Next up, we have Terry Kaleznick, followed by Alexis Motorex, followed by Gordon Gossage.
Hi, I'm Terry Kaleznick. I guess I'm in Ward 2. I'm over by Virginia Lake. I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a realtor, and and a church member, and I represent a whole lot of people who would be here today, but your room wouldn't be able to fill them all, so seat them all. And I'm standing with Eddie's opinion that this should be lawfully followed. This is an elected position, and so we need to hold another election, as he stated, for this person, so to be in there, because it is another 2 years before this go-round comes again. So an appointment is not satisfying to the people of this city. We need to have an election for this person. So thank you for listening. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Terry.
Next up, we have Alexis Motorex, followed by Gordon Gossage.
Good morning. My name is Alexis Motorex with the Nevada Chapter, Associated General Contractors, representing over 300 firms in the commercial construction industry in northern Nevada. I want to start by saying how sad we are to see Councilwoman Jardin leave, but we wish her well in her new endeavors and thank her for her service and dedication to the city. We are here today to encourage council to fill the impending vacancy by appointment rather than special election. Should you wait to conduct a special election, this seat will remain vacant for at least 4 months, leaving the citizens of Ward 5 with no representation on this body. It would be a disservice to the residents of all of Reno to let that seat sit vacant for so long while council addresses the important issues facing our city. Additionally, we are in uncertain economic times, and spending tens of thousands of dollars on an unnecessary election for one ward is not the best in the best interest of all residents of the city of Reno who will bear the cost of this. The last 2 vacancies on council were filled by appointment and resulted in 2 members who have been strong leaders and assets to this community, Councilman Reese and his predecessor, David Bobzien, both of whom represented their constituents so well following their appointments they went on to be elected by their constituents. The appointment process is open and very public, giving residents of Ward 5 ample opportunity to weigh in on their representation. The city charter and NRS provide 2 options to fill this vacancy. Given how long a special election will take and the cost to taxpayers, it seems making the appointment is the only responsible choice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Gordon Gossage, followed by Scott Meyer.
Good morning. My name's Gordon Gossage with Regenesis Reno. And I have to tell you, usually I would say, let's have a special election. But that would be in normal times. These are not normal times. We need this seat filled because we have election in November. And we need all 18 elected leaders of the 3 jurisdictions to recognize at least one thing, and that is Joe Lombardo won the Republican primary. And if there's some misguided people who claim that he did not, then that's an attack on democracy. My uncle was killed in the South Pacific defending democracy, 1944. And he did not die to defend the notion of attacking the Capitol building. Anyone who attacked the Capitol building was responsible for the death of people working for the federal government that we elected. So I urge you to fill this seat as soon as possible to make sure we have democracy in this country and to help the people who are misguided because they are so angry. They are so fearful of the changes that have happened in their country. But the answer is not an insurrection. 20% of Americans believe that democracy is so broken that elections should be canceled and the military, either federal or local militia, should take over the country. You guys need to change that. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I want you to create a coalition to make sure people have faith in the election in the fall. Am I going to vote for Joe Lombardo? No. Those who know me obviously know that. However, he is the Republican who it'll be either Joe Lombardo or it'll be Governor Sisolak who's going to win. And let me just say very clearly, my party and my wing of the party, the Progressive Democrats, have lost the white working class. We've also more and more are losing the Latino working class. The MAGA movement now has the support of over a third of Latinos. And we need you guys, all 18 of you, to support our election system and get rid of the fantasy that someone other than Joe Lombardo won that election. Thank you very much.
Up next, we have Scott Meyer.
How you doing? My name is Scott Meyer. I just want to support what Eddie Lorton said about special election. I don't think the government would stop working if that seat wasn't filled right away. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me. But I think things will move along just fine. But I think a special election is what, people deserve. They deserve to be able to have a say in who sits up here. So I just agree with Eddie, and I just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, at this time, that is all we have in-house. I do not see anyone on Zoom wishing to speak.
No, it's okay. Don't worry.
This is for the opening public comment. We do not have anyone else signed up for the opening public comment. Additionally, we have not received any written correspondence and we have no voicemails.
Okay, go ahead. Councilwoman Dewar.
Yeah, Mr. Clerk, yesterday we got about 25 letters of written correspondence related to this.
I believe they were written for the item itself
Oh,
and not for
okay.
opening public
Got
comment.
you.
So we
Thank you.
have some that will come up
I
later.
had the same confusion, sorry,
That's okay.
sorry. just want to make sure everything was.
These one-item meetings are a bit tricky since everyone's speaking on the same thing.
Gotcha.
So I think we're moving on to item A4, approval of the agenda.
All right, at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion. I have a motion from Councilman
Second.
Reese, a second from
Could
Council.
could we have a discussion on the agenda?
Yeah, hold on one second. A second from Councilwoman Dewar.
Yeah.
Sending it to you, Councilwoman Breckes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand the haste necessary to schedule this meeting in short notice from Monday to today. But in contrast to different times, there was no consultation with members of the body about their availability. I don't even know, because I share my private calendar at the request of the office manager, if they looked and saw that I had a busy appointment at noon, which I do. It's a medical appointment, long scheduled. I cannot cancel it. I tried. I will not ghost one of our small businesses. I think medical offices are having time right now. So I'm going to request that if by the time we leave, I have to leave in 10 minutes, that if a vote is taken, that we recess until I can return. We did the same courtesy 2 days ago to the mayor, and I'm asking for that courtesy. And I also want to state that the charter committee meeting that was held with one work notice, was canceled with one workday's notice, was also rescheduled to a date without any consultation on availability, and I missed that meeting on account of that. So I think this scheduling, I don't know if the mayor and the manager have special privileges in setting agendas. I don't know if consultation has gone on with other members, but it did not go with me. This is an important decision. I'd like to be here for it. I have to walk out of the door in 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, that being said, I'm going to send it back to you, Madam Clerk.
We do have a motion and a second on the table.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, that moves us up to item B1. Are you looking for public comment at this time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We do have some public comment in the building. First up, we have Renee Resentis, followed by Valerie Fianacca, followed by Connor Mcquivey.
Thank you. My name is Renee Resentis, for the record. I'm sorry I'm not more prepared to speak, but I'll do the best I can. This is appointing people for elected positions is becoming widespread here in Washoe County. I know they're trying to do that with school board also. They want to appoint the school board members, not have elections. So I don't want to see this take precedence and it affect all the boards. We, the people, we are the voices here, and we're the ones that need to be heard and respected. And as far as corporations, builders, whatever, they bring a lot of stuff happening with our infrastructure and everything. It is really affecting it in a lot of areas in a very bad way. But I know we're getting subsidies from the federal government, and they are chipping away at our freedom by providing that, and the board's accepting it. Because the more that we allow the federal government to have control, the more our country is going to become ruled by the federal government down the road and not the people. So please take that into consideration. This is not just a little piece of what's happening in our town here. Already just what happened with the president and Mar-a-Lago, and I mean, this is tyranny. This is tyranny happening right here when we start appointing representatives rather than have the elected process. So I am with Eddie Lorton and those opposed to this appointee, and we would like to see a special election. So, thank you.
All right, thanks, Renee.
Next up, we have Valerie Fianacca, followed by Connor Mcquivey, followed by Kurt Gottschalk.
Valerie Fianacca for the record, business owner here in Reno. I spent till 10 p.m. down at the legislative session this week, speaking and listening to speakers about the appointment of school boards. This isn't the first time it's come up. This is the third legislative session where it's been brought before them, the notion of appointing school boards rather than having them elected. Overwhelmingly, the public doesn't want this. They want the representation. They want to have a voice in how their children are raised and what comes before their children in terms of school books, in terms of everything. They want to say in how their kids are raised. The same goes for politics. They want their city, they want to have a say in how their city is run. Even though this is a short-term appointment, I still think a special election is not without reason. It's not without reason at all. We spend money like it's water in this city. An election is one of the most important things that we, the citizens, do. It gives us voice. It gives us our voice in the city. It makes us feel a part of it. The more that's taken away from the citizens, the less they feel like participating in the entire process. Taking that away from the citizens makes them feel devalued. If you want participation by the citizens, or maybe that's the whole point, maybe you don't want participations by the citizens, it just takes more and more away. Currently, we have 4 school board members who are appointed, and no parents, I can tell you because I go every 2 weeks to the school board, no parents show up. That's appalling. We're 50th in the nation in terms of our schools in Nevada, and there are 0 parents that show up at the school board. Why is that? Because they don't feel like they have a voice. I don't know how many citizens you get here at these meetings because I've never come to one, never felt the need to. But appointing people to your board can do nothing good for you, nothing at all. It's better to leave the seat open because you still have a quorum without that one seat. You can still do your business without that one seat. I would appeal to you to, at very minimum, leave the seat open for the duration of the term. It can do no harm, no foul. I mean, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Connor Mcquivey, followed by Kurt Gottschalk, followed by Jess Trujillo.
Good morning, City Council. My name is Connor Mcquivey. I'm here to encourage you to hold an election for this seat. I know that last time there was an open seat, that was done by appointment, and I think that was fine. It was less than a year until the election. Councilman Reese went on to win, be supported by the voters. This is a little different. My understanding is this seat won't be up for election until 2024. That's 2 years, and I think the voters of Ward 5 should have a say in who's going to be representing them for that 2-year period. I don't live in Ward 5. I would not be able to participate in this election, but I do think that it's important for voters to be able to have a say. The other thing I would encourage you to do for this special election, if you do it, if it is possible, is to do it with a ranked choice election. And there's a few reasons for that. Here in Nevada, in November, there's a ballot initiative to run our state elections with a ranked choice system. I think it's a good way to go. I think it is a better way of doing our elections. I know there are people on this body who support ranked choice voting. And I think this is a good opportunity to put our money where our mouth is and demonstrate it. I don't know what the rules are for running these elections. I don't know legally what has to be done in order for it to be ranked choice, but I think it's something that we can do and lead the conversation on. Over the next couple months, a lot of people in Nevada and in Reno are going to be learning about, talking about, debating ranked choice voting. And for us as a city to be able to lead that conversation, to show how it works, to talk about ranked choice voting, I think is really important. It's a great opportunity for us as a city, and I hope that you will take it. Secondly, ranked choice voting is nothing new for the people of Reno. I voted here in Reno in a ranked choice election 2 years ago. The Democratic primaries in 2020 were held with a ranked choice vote. The way that works for people who don't know ranked choice voting, basically instead of just voting for one person, you put the candidates in order. That's my first pick, that's my second pick, that's my third pick. What that does is ensures that who wins the seat has the most broad appeal. We can do that. We've done it before. We're also not the only place that's doing potentially ranked choice voting. Seattle just voted to do it. New York City just did it in their mayoral election. Alaska is doing it statewide. And as I said, it's going to be on the ballot here in Nevada very, very soon. The third reason I think you need to do an election for this seat is, as you've seen in public comment today, there is a lot of criticism that this body may not accurately represent the will of the people. And if you appoint someone to this seat, as unfortunate as it is, I think you'll be looking at 2 years of across the aisle, both the people who've spoken today and people that are ideologically very opposed to the people that have spoken today. They're all going to be spending 2 years accusing you of not listening to the voters. And I don't think that's good for the city. So I encourage you to hold an election, and if you're able, to do it via ranked choice so that Reno can really lead the conversation, because I think that's where our elections are going, and I'd like to be at the forefront of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, because I have to leave, could I make a public comment? Thank you. My position from when the last time we had a vacancy is that the voters should decide and not the members of this body, and I still have not changed my position. There's a lot going on in Ward 1 right now. I have a lot of constituents reaching out to me. They want me to work on their constituent needs over the next month, not in political decisions, and that's what an appointment essentially is. I also believe strongly that when an individual goes out and gains a seat for the first time, those conversations with voters, the humble demands of a candidate, follow through to that person when they seat. And I think appointments, they miss that step of growth as a candidate. So those are why I support an election at this time. I have strong reservations if this body decides to go through with an appointment and even participating. I don't know that I would want to legitimize what I believe is a political farce. I think it enhances the power of individual bodies on this members on this body in service to those who have political influence, because that's always a characteristic of these appointments, who's supporting who. And for me, I think the support for this position needs to come not from us and who has our ear, but from the voters in the neighborhoods in Ward 5. Thank you, and I have to leave, and I hope the body will hold the vote until I'm available at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Next up, we have Kurt Gottschalk, followed by Jess Trujillo, followed by Nick Martin.
Good morning. My name's Kurt Gottschalk. For those that don't know me, I'm a 43-year resident of the community with all but 2 years of that time spent in Reno. I'm actively involved in the community, and one of the comments I would make in regards to this issue is that I'm not a person who, if elected, becomes a perpetual government employee. I used to not support term limits. I support term limits heavily now. I dislike when members of an elected board or council go from county to city, city to state, state into city, or other positions that they're given. I think that's wrong. An election is how the citizens choose who they want. They don't want Ward 1 at large, Ward 2, Ward 4 choosing their representative. They want that representative chosen by themselves. They know what is best. They don't want a rubber stamp person put in this place. And the election process does that. Democracy is an election. Democracy isn't appointments. Cost. I've heard the Association of Contractors thinks it costs too much to hold the election. Well, recently this council voted $137,500 to buy a whale and repair it. I think the cost of this election far more important than a $137,500 whale. And if cost comes into being, if you can't hold this election for that amount, then we have a problem. But anything under that, significantly under that, I think we can hold an election. Mail-in ballots, as Mr. Lorton said, can be utilized, inexpensively done. Independent thinking versus partisan skullduggery. The independent thinking is what occurs with your citizens. Partisan skullduggery is what happens when elected officials get involved and partisan politics comes about. Not conforming to what the world asks of you is your birthright to greatness. Allow the process to prevail. Allow us to be able to vote for who we want to represent us from the people that would come forward to want that opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Up next, we have Jess Trujillo, followed by Nick Martin.
Hello, Jess Trujillo. So in my honest opinion, since I've started coming to these meetings whenever I am able to, my faith in democracy is that it is dead. Been born and raised here, and I have seen just how everything is slowly collapsing under this council that we have. I am in favor of a special election because we should have somebody that represents the people and not somebody that can be bought out by huge corporations. So that's my honest opinion on that. And I do believe if you guys don't go through with it, you will go ahead and continue to piss off the people, and the people will react. So I'm going to keep it short and simple at that. And I hope you do go ahead and listen to the people and not to the people that line your pockets with money.
Thanks, Jeff.
Up next is Nick Martin.
Good morning. I'm Nick Martin. I've been a Reno resident for 42 years and 64 years old. And for my lifetime, I've seen a gradual usurping of the power of the people. In other words, bureaucracy in government has grown immensely in my lifetime, as yours has. And taking away the power from the people, and this is an example of that, where the person originally sitting in that seat was elected by the voters, now appointed, if you do this, by a group of elitists, people who think they know better than us, what's good for us, okay? I would, I thought I'd say, well, I'd request that you do this election. I'm more likely to demand it at this point. I mean, that growth in government, the growth in the power with the government is in overdrive right now, since Mr. Trump pulled down the curtain and let everybody see what's happening. That's why we've gone from basically a stroll to an out-and-out sprint towards socialism. Now, a concrete example of that, I went to a council meeting recently, a commissioner's meeting recently, and they voted down a bill that called for voter ID. And as I said in that meeting, there's only two groups of people that would be against voter ID. First are idiots. Second are mediocre politicians who need the ability to tweak elections to maintain power. Those are the two groups I see being against voter ID, okay? As you can see, I'm a little upset, and I'm not alone. We're getting a little angry. You know, we need this stuff to stop. We need the power back with the people. And it's not just a statement. It's not just a bumper sticker. You know, this is a big deal, huge deal. That thing in Mar-a-Lago was as egregious as anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. I just watched a clip this morning of Peter Doocy asking the press secretary for the president, are you in fact weaponizing the Justice Department against an opponent? She refused to answer the question. That should have been a flat out no. It's so obvious what's going on, it's getting ridiculous. And I know we're small, we're one little city, one little person, but that matters. That matters. So I would demand that you hold this election rather than just appointing somebody. Because when we elected you, when we allowed you to sit this seat and tell us what to do, run the city, okay, we had some faith in you. But that doesn't mean you can take our rights away, okay? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, that was our last in-person commenter. It does appear we have Lee Wilhelm on Zoom. We'll bring him over to speak.
Okay, sounds good.
Timer's ready when he's pulled over. You are, just a moment. Okay, Mr. Wilhelm, you're ready to speak. Please unmute your microphone.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good morning. How's everybody? I'm glad to be here. I'm sad that we have to fill this position, but I ran for this office in the past. And I also applied to run for at-large when we were filling it in the same process. I just wanted you to know that I'm very interested. I was interested before. And I think most of the people I've talked to, that's why we have you guys in office, is to decide how you want to appoint or have this position elected. So I think you need to know that we trust what you choose to do and that we're very interested. So thank you for your time. I am also concerned about, I believe you only have 30 days to fill this position by law. And so that concerns me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is all of our public comment. For the record, we received 20 comments which were directly associated with the agenda item prior to 4 p.m. on August 11th, 2022. These comments were written correspondence received via our Reno.gov online public comment form or by email to our office. Copies of these comments have been distributed to the Reno City Council and are available to the public on the Reno.gov meeting portal. One of these emails was in favor, one in opposition, and 18 concerned. And additionally, there are no voicemails that were received.
Okay, thank you. Just for the record, the mayor asked me to sit in for her while she used the facilities. So I think is the next point on the agenda, presentation by our clerk about process. If you would introduce yourself, Mickey, and please proceed.
Thank you, Councilmember Doerr. All right, so we are here today to discuss the options that you have to fill the upcoming vacancy in the Ward 5 seat currently held by Councilmember Neoma Jordan. As you're aware, Councilmember Jordan submitted a letter of resignation to the City of Reno on August 8th with an effective date of August 15th, 2022. The Ward 5 seat runs from November 22 through November 2024. This means that we're seeking direction and a decision from you today on how to fill this seat for the remainder of the current term. This process is governed by NRS 268.325 and Reno City Charter Chapter 1.070. These sections have been shared with each of you and are a part of the City Council packet. So let's begin with 2.68325. Which states, if a vacancy occurs on the governing body of a city, the governing body may, in lieu of appointment, declare by resolution a special election to fill the vacancy. In section 1.070 of the Reno City Charter, it states that if we proceed with an appointment, that must be completed within 30 days after the occurrence of a vacancy. And so those are the two, essentially, paths and topics that we're going to review together today. In both scenarios, the person that is elected or appointed to fill the seat must have the same qualifications as required of an elected official for a campaign session. Option number one. The first option here today is special election. As stated in your packet, I did make contact with the Washoe County Registrar of Voters in an effort to obtain a cost estimate and a timeline estimate for a special election. In speaking with Jamie Rodriguez, we have been quoted an estimate of $102,000 to hold up a special election for this position with the exclusion of the costs associated with standing up vote centers. Because we don't know how many vote centers would need to be stood up at this time, we don't have an estimate to include. However, that is not indicated in that $102,000. Additionally, the secondary portion of this is the timeline. So no action can be taken on a special election until after the completion of the 2022 general election. In anticipation for this, as you can see, I have outlined here that we would not begin work on a special election process until January of 2023. And then additionally, which would mean an estimated, an estimated election and completion of the election would not be completed until March or April of 2023. Several of you have asked me about the potential of including this vacancy on the 2022 general ballot. And in anticipation for that discussion, I did speak with the Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, Mark Velashin, and you will note his correspondence is also included inside of your packets today. And it's outlined in NRS 293-165, the timelines for elections to be completed. And so because of that, we don't have, it's not outlined in the timeline to be able to include this position in our current 2022 general election session. All right, so special election timeline. So today, obviously, we're talking about the method for filling the vacancy. If you choose to go forward with a special election, on our regularly scheduled meeting on August 24th, we will bring forward a resolution for adoption on process, funding, and a timeline for the special election. An estimated of February of 2023, we would likely, candidates would file for their position, and then we would hold the special election likely towards the end or the beginning of, the end of February or the beginning of March, and then likely at the end of March or the beginning of April, we would canvass the votes of that said election. All right, option number 2 is City Council selection and appointment. So this is a process that our office is extremely comfortable with. As you can see here, we have conducted the appointment process in 2014 for Councilmember Bobzian, additionally in 2019 for at-large Councilmember Devin Reese. We've participated in all of the appointments application processes for the city manager, and then additionally the appointment processes for the city clerk. With this process, Ward 5 residents would have representation within 30 days, which means that at our first council meeting on September 14th, 2022, those Ward 5 members would have representation at that first meeting. And again, the 30 days is outlined in Reno City Charter 1.070. The appointment timeline is as follows. August 12th, today, again, we're reviewing the appointment process for filling the vacancy. Starting on Monday next week, because we are against that 30-day timeline, we would start accepting applications. So Monday through Friday of next week, the 15th through the 19th, we would accept applications. On August 25th, those applications would be reviewed and finalists would be selected. And then on September 7th, those applicants would be interviewed by the Reno City Council. A selection would be made and they would be sworn in on September 7th. Something you may not see here that we have done in the past is in-person interview or in-person meet and greets for the potential applicants. We did take that into consideration, assuming that council would want those individuals that were selected as finalists to meet with their constituents, to have an opportunity for them to ask questions and get to know the potential candidates of who would be representing their ward. And so with that in mind, we have scheduled out the week of August 29th, potentially 2 dates. One would be a hybrid virtual / in-person option for those who cannot attend. They can attend via Zoom, engage and interact with the candidates. And then additionally, we would do one in-person interview. So instead of last time we only did 1 meet and greet, this time we're proposing doing 2 to really allow for time for the public to meet with their with the applicants. And so today, the recommendation, you have 2 options, which are presented before you today. Either option 1, to proceed with filling the vacancy through a special election, or to fill the vacancy with an appointment process and to direct staff to move forward with the timeline presented. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start with Councilwoman Dewar. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the summary. You've gathered a lot of information in a short time, so I appreciate it. I have questions on both processes, really quick. If we did a special election, would there be two phases, like a primary and a general, or would it just be one election period?
In my review, it seems that it's just one election period.
Okay. Okay. The second question I have on special election is, why would we have to wait till after the November election to even get started on the process? I don't get that part.
The Registrar of Voters currently and until about mid-December is very busy trying to prepare for the general election. There's a lot of moving parts to that current process, and so they are not available or accessible to us to hold up a special election until after the general is completed.
And it has to be the county clerk versus you, who is our clerk?
Yes, so in charter or in NRS, because of our size, we are required to go through the Washoe County Registrar of Voters to complete any of our election processes.
And could they, since election I think is in the first week, I want to say, or roughly November 8th or so, or 7th, I'm sorry, I don't have the exact date, and then there's a period where we have to certify. And when is that period to certify the general?
10 days.
So they would have certified the election by 10 days after, so mid-November, let's say before Thanksgiving.
Correct.
So I guess I'm still confused why we would have to wait all the way till January, because they would have already certified the election.
I apologize, Jamie's not here to answer questions for you today, but there is still a period of time after that where they can ask for a recount on votes. There's also a period of other legal issues that the Washoe County Registrar needs to make sure that they're wrapping up all of their processes. And in order to accomplish that or achieve that, they needed that additional amount of time until about mid-December before they were available to us to start working on the special election.
Okay, but even mid-December is earlier than mid-January.
So I said we would start the filing process in January. So we would have to start to get all of the paperwork and all of our procedures in order to start to stand up the election in January.
Okay, then I have a question on the appointment process. You said something about 2 meet and greets, and would you explain that again, and just really quickly, and I'm going to be running out of time. So let me go to another question. Last time we did this, there was a narrowing. So I think about 100 people applied, and somehow we narrowed that process to 4. Can you just explain that? And I didn't see that on this discussion.
Yep. So in the last time, you did in fact have a narrowing process. So we brought forward all of the applications for review. City Council then did a scoring system, and they narrowed it down to their top 5, which actually ended up being their top 4.
Okay.
And then from there, those finalists went and did a meet and greet. So in this process, it would be the exact same. If you will. On August 25th, at that point in time, you would be reviewing the applications and selecting your finalists. And then from that list, those individuals would move forward to the meet and greet sessions.
Okay, so that explains that. I'll come back on round 2 with more questions.
Councilman Reese.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I have a couple of questions that are similar to what Ms. Dewar asked about. The first is this question about whether or not there would be a primary and a general. And so there are in Nevada primary elections, general elections, and special elections. And those are 3 different things under their statutes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in this regard, then, if we chose the route of the election, we would have, let's say, 10, 12, 17, 25 candidates. And then the person who, I don't know how many would apply, obviously, but the person who got the plurality of that. So that means that a person could be elected to this body with like 7% of the vote, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I think in my last general election, I won, 55% of the vote citywide. I don't recall that my opponent ever acknowledged that because I think he is an election denier. So I'm just not sure. But you have a process by which we have to canvass the votes, right?
That's correct.
And so I guess I'm trying to figure out, how does that happen in a scenario in which there are 17 persons that run and there's a plurality of them? You still do the same canvassing process?
So the certification of the votes is essentially, it's a record and a report produced by the Washoe County Registrar of Voters of the totals. And then that certification comes forward to this body to just review the totals and then accept it.
And then our charter committee has recently spent the last 6 months looking at the charter. Did they bring up this issue in their conversations about what charter changes they wanted? Meaning, we have an election or an appointment process that is part of our constitutional document, the charter, which suggests to me that it is a part of our democratic process. Did any of the charter members raise this issue in that process?
We did have one of the charter committee members bring it up as a discussion point. Ultimately, the charter committee reviewed the topics, they reviewed the discussion items, and they decided that the decision really was on the Secretary of State's office because ours is very much in alignment with NRS. And because of that, they decided that it was a larger issue for different conversations.
So your concern, or their concern, was that it was a legislative priority, or it's a priority of this body?
It was a legislative priority.
Okay. When you identified the costs related to the special election, you said that it was $102,000 was the estimate, but that did not include opening up voting centers. How many voting centers do you know exist in Ward 5 in a traditional election?
You know, I did not ask that question of Ms. Rodriguez, and so I'm not really certain what the total would be currently or what it will be in the future.
So, but it would be either like a Rayleigh's or a school kind of scenario? Okay. And then you have to have election workers work those?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have on this round. Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Durr.
I don't know if there's
Do we have
anyone.
anyone up there? Mr. Clerk?
Would any of the council members on Zoom like to speak?
I don't have any, I don't think.
This is Councilwoman Weber.
Whoa.
We understand that we think there's a possibility the meeting might be corrupted, and I don't know that we can fix this echo right now. So I think
Okay.
So I think we may just have to trudge along. So,
Okay, that's.
Councilmember Weber.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't have anything. I think I've heard a lot of good information. So
Can you turn it down?
I'm waiting for the other questions, and what have you. Thank you.
Is it possible to turn it down, the volume? Maybe?
We can do that.
Yeah, okay.
Councilmember Delgado, would you like to speak?
No, thank you. Thanks for asking. Appreciate my colleagues' questions.
Okay. All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, just run this by me again so I understand, because I find it just really mind-blowing that we couldn't get it on this election. So explain that to me again, and then also go through the timeline of that.
For the special election?
Yeah.
Okay. So in elections law, it outlines a specific amount of time with which a candidate has to file their application to run for office.
And what is that? 2 weeks?
I don't have that in front of me. It's like the first 2 weeks of January for municipals, and then it's the first 2 weeks in March, I believe, for non-judicial positions. And so they then take that, have a period of time, so basically March to June, to prepare for the primary election season, and that all of those dates are outlined in NRS. And then additionally, once that is completed, they also have additional amount of time then between June and November to complete their general election. And so because we have missed those timelines, we aren't eligible, or those timelines aren't indicated in law for us to be able to input our current situation onto the general ballot.
Okay, so then, coming back to timelines, how long does it take us to get there? It just seems like an exorbitant amount of time. So how long?
Early spring. I mean, spring of 23 is likely the next moment that we will have a representative for Ward 5 if we do a special election.
So we're talking, what, 6 months, maybe?
8 months.
8 months?
What?
Well, it's August, it's early August, so basically now until April, March, April. 7 months. And again, these aren't defined, so I don't have firm dates. It's just, it would be early spring.
Interesting. And listen, I think everyone made a lot of great comments today. I absolutely do. I understand exactly how you feel. I was really leaning in the special side because I believe that. And I believe that's why we do have elections, so the people that, choose their own candidates. Obviously, term limits, everyone will get their decision, and they'll get to do that at some point. The one thing I have, though, is the timeline. Seems like a really concerning amount of time. Ward 5, I guess, if you're saying 8 months, I mean, that means that puts us closer into a year. That's a lot of time. And I guess my concern is, when I start to think about it, there's also other boards and commissions that she serves on that really need representation in Ward 5. So that's a long time.
Madam Mayor.
I had no idea. I thought we could just get it on this ballot. I mean, I'm pretty shocked, actually. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I want to say a couple things. First of all, I gave this a lot of thought over the last few days. It's all the time we've had. And I kept coming down on the side of special election. I felt like now more than ever, we have ward-only voting. When we appointed the other two positions, they were both at large, where most of us on council went through a citywide election today. I think it's only one person that didn't go through a citywide election. So I felt like, okay, we were appointing at large. I also did a little research. It just happened to fall into my lap. Going back to '83, and there have been openings before, and all of those openings, not just the last two openings, but all of the openings have been filled, at least since '83, by appointment.
It's been more than 30 years since we've done a special election in the city of Reno.
So I did that research just to inform myself. But all that said, I didn't delve into whether those were at large, but because back then we had citywide voting. And we've only had ward-only voting since 2018, I want to say, roughly, is when it took effect. And this is a ward. And what's that?
Nothing. I said I don't support that.
Yeah, I don't support it. You weren't here, but last meeting, I actually at our BDR suggested we go back to citywide election and consider that for our next BDR discussion in 2 years. Because I believe that combination that we had, which was ward only in the primary and the general was citywide, I think was a very good system. I really do. And the theory about reducing cost, well, that hasn't proven out. The theory about increasing representation, that hasn't proven out. So far, that's where I'm leaning, and I'm going to be advocating for that when we come back in 2 years. But all that said, and I have to tell the audience that's spoken, while I agree with, and also the comments that came in, I agree with the end result, because I'm very much leaning towards an election, special election. But I don't necessarily do it for the same reasons. I do it because I think that our highest ideals in democracy rely on representative elections that result in a representative for a group of people. In this case, it's not the whole city. It's just ward only. And so that's kind of informed my decision more than ever. Also, like the mayor, I thought we have an election coming up. It's perfect. People are primed. There's 3 months. That's about how long people spend on either a primary or a general. It made a lot of sense to me. Even when I found out that they could not be on the same ballot because it hasn't been certified, I thought, well, it could still be a special election that occurs on the same day. Even if it's 2 ballot cards, one for everybody on this certified field and one on this certified field only for the people in Ward 5. It'd be like doing only a GID election, only an HOA election, those kind of things, a TV district election, all of those are smaller pools. So I really thought, these things could be done in parallel, even if they can't be on the same ballot. So that's where I came in thinking today. You have stunned me with this timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have. And I don't even know if I agree with this timeline. I feel like we should go ask the question, even if we have to schedule another meeting, to the registrar, because these almost seem like, okay, I get that you're short-staffed or whatever, but, this is very important. And even if we have to bring in extra staffing, I mean, this is a very important activity and the seat needs to be filled as soon as possible. That's why they've given us an appointment in only 30 days. Everyone recognizes that we should not let this linger for a year. So those were some of my thoughts. I read all the comments. I heard the comments here today. I agree with them, not with the same reasoning. That was discussed, and I'll just be honest about that, but I just feel like it's the right thing to do. In this particular moment, and really clarify the why, because I think that's an unnecessary barrier, that's being put in front of us that's muddling our decision-making. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Go ahead, Councilman Reese.
Thank you. I guess I want to start my questions with our city attorney and ask, is the city of Reno in a Dillon's rule state at liberty to vary the election laws of the state of Nevada?
No, we're not.
Okay. I want to ask, because this is also part of the historical background for Ms. Dewar, who has looked at the city of Reno's appointments, but I thought, let's figure out about appointments in this country, because the principle that appointments are anti-democratic is false. So President Trump nominated and appointed 4,000 persons to office. Vacancies are filled by, and I didn't know this until I looked it up, for gubernatorial appointments for Senate vacancies by governor in 37 states. Those include Alabama, Arkansas, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, Minnesota, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Wyoming. And I shared that to say, again, the concept that an appointment is not democratic is anathema to our system of government. It's literally in our charter, and I don't see how governors should be able to appoint U.S. senators, but we are somehow questioning our ability to appoint at this body. And so I appreciate some of the comments made by folks in the audience. I'm not sure I come at it from the same direction either. I believe in the integrity of our elections. I believe that democracy has been strong and is robust. And although I think, as Mr. Gossage pointed out, there were efforts to overthrow this country, and includes probably some of the folks who have similar worldviews that have made comments both here today and online, I just cannot agree with that. I also wanted to offer for one of the commentators, I think I heard the concern about my having been appointed and what the timeline was. I actually served for 22 months in the role as an appointed position, so the idea that somehow the length of time determines it, I think the truth is if we had been in January or February, we would have found a way to make it so that we could have had a primary and a general. The concern I have is not only is it we are not going to be able to vary the conditions of state law relating to elections or the Washoe County Recorder's staffing levels or how they engage in those. But we also are creating a system in which the special election would happen in like January, February, March. Well, what kind of turnout do you think you'll have in that kind of a period of time just right after having had an election in a ward that is pretty compact, but I'm not sure is different or unrepresentative of the rest of the city. I mean, I think they are representative. It spans ever from downtown to Somerset. And so again, my concern is that even the special election route on that timeline would not be representative of our democracy, our democratic process. So I will be supporting the appointment process.
Our city manager to see if we could patch Jamie in.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Ms. Rodriguez is not yet on Zoom. We will pull her over as soon as we see her, and I will notify you.
I'm just curious, how many of you are Republicans in the room? Raise your hand. Yeah, raise your hand. Are you a Republican? Raise your hand. Are you a Democrat? Raise your hand. No, this is my point. Are you an independent? Raise your hand. Right? All of us together, it doesn't matter, right? This is about the people, right? It just seems that it gets very partisan, and that's not the process.
Madam
right?
Mayor, Ms. Rodriguez is on Zoom. We are in the process of pulling her over.
And I always do that. I always ask because I'm an independent. I don't believe in supporting parties because, bad policy in the party.
Madam Mayor, Ms. Rodriguez is
right, good.
a
Thank you.
panelist now. Ms. Rodriguez, can you hear us? Please unmute your microphone.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Madam Mayor, I'll defer to you. I don't know if you want me to kind of go into some of the questions that I've heard and answer those, or if you guys have specific ones you'd like me to kind of start with.
Ms. Rodriguez, this is Doug Thornley. Would you expand upon why, after the completion of the general election in November, it will take an extended period of time to have a special election?
Certainly. So Jamie Rodriguez, for the record, interim registrar of voters for Washoe County. So I think one thing that people do not appreciate for elections, as the election will be completed, we have an additional we have until the end of November, specifically November 22nd, for candidates to be able to request a recount. And not knowing whether a recount will be requested or not, we would have to build that into our timeline, which easily puts us into early December. At the completion of any sort of a recount or not a recount, we still are in early December to complete our risk limiting audits and the final kind of cleanup of the election that has to happen here before anything else could happen. We have to, box up ballots. We'd have to make room for any new election that would be happening. And that does take the entirety of our staff. And so that's why we were saying, going into mid-December is really when we would be completing the bulk of our work that's related to the general election. Since at that point in time, we'd be going into the holidays. That was why my conversation with Mickey was us looking at January to really start the process of creating an election. And I don't know if we want to go into kind of that timeline, or if there was just more of a question as why we would have to start, or why we were saying not being able to start until early January.
May I ask a quick question? Ms. Rodriguez, are you here over at the county building?
I am at the county building, yes.
I mean, is there any chance we could take a short recess? I had a very hard time hearing her, for 15 minutes for her just to come over. Is that possible? I had a very hard time Oh, okay. Just thought I'd ask. I want to understand this.
Unfortunately, with my schedule, I don't know that realistically I'd be able to do that and make the rest of my meetings that I have.
Okay, could you just repeat the part about December? You said you would finish and then...
So we would be finishing in mid-December for the risk limiting audit and the completion of the election. So that's boxing and storing all of the election materials. So that's the ballots, that's undeliverable mail, that is the empty envelopes from the election, that is any challenge ballot. All of that takes us into mid to potentially late December.
Were you
One
able
more
to understand that?
I think I understood that she was going to be boxing stuff up.
Yeah, so after the expiration of the time for a recount, the expiration of the time to challenge the results of the election, the completion of the audit, and for Ms. Rodriguez and her staff to button up and then store all of the relevant records, she's into mid to late December.
Got that. Can I ask her a question? Okay. Ms. Rodriguez, one of the things that's come up here today is, I understood we had to have a special election, but is it possible, and I know that you are short-staffed, but boxing up and those kind of things maybe can be done by others, but is it possible to do a special election in parallel with the current election that you're running?
It is not, and I'll explain why again, Jamie Rodriguez for the record. The reason I say no, with the transition to vote centers in the state of Nevada, that means we would have to have separate machines at every single vote center, specifically programmed for that special election. I do not have enough equipment to conduct the general election for the number of machines that would be at vote centers, as well as the backups that we have, and have enough dedicated to be able to actually have specific machines at every center for that special election.
So one more question. Okay, I heard you. One more question. It's been mentioned a couple times that mail-in would be part of this. Is it possible per our law, which was amended, to have a mail-in only system for this special election?
I don't believe so. I would have to confirm that. And the reason I say I don't believe so, Nevada does have an all mail-in election system. However, we do also have the ability for voters to opt out of a mail-in election, which means if you have any voters in City Ward 5 who have opted out of receiving a mail ballot, you would be prohibiting their ability to vote in the special election.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Mayor, I did want to point out Councilmember Weber does have her hand up on Zoom. Councilmember Weber?
Thank you. I'm trying to get in. Let me see. Thank you so much. Am I too loud now?
We're trying to adjust your volume. You can go ahead.
Okay. I don't have a question for Ms. Rodriguez, so I could wait until after all of the questions were answered by her.
Okay, it sounds like she's going to wait.
More questions?
She is. I don't have a question about from her. It's from staff. So I can wait until after we're done with Ms. Rodriguez.
Is that clear? Okay.
Okay. All right, any more questions for Jamie?
I mean, I guess
Any
I'll
more?
just one
Okay.
last thing. I mean, thank you for being here and making yourself available because we're finding ourselves in a very unusual situation. Something I actually thought was the simplest situation that we could be facing and one of the simpler decisions that we would be facing. And I find it overly complicated by staffing, issues. And there was even a comment made earlier that, by Mr. Reese, and it was an interesting comment that if we're in January, we could have added it into another ballot system and done a whole primary, but the position still would have been vacant 9 months if we did that, or 10 months or whatever it is. So I'm not sure that would have necessarily solved it. So if not now, when? I guess I'm going to ask when would be a perfect time to have a special election? I know that maybe you can't answer that. I guess if the vacancy had just happened in January, then you could have done it in expedited fashion from January to March. Is that what you're saying?
So I will say, I don't know that there is a perfect time. I'll be perfectly honest. Giving you a perfect time for somebody to resign is something I don't think I can honestly answer. Where we've reached kind of a difficulty, as Mickey mentioned, right, there's that candidate filing period, but specific to a general election, there is a statutory date, which is the 4th Friday in July, which was July 22nd. That is the last day for a general election for which we could make any changes to that ballot. So that is to allow for, any last minute questions on the ballot and those types of things. In the middle of any election, it's going to be really difficult for us to run two elections at the same time.
So I get that. And the statutory, I just want to make sure I understand, because obviously we don't want to be illegal. So the statutory requirement, is there a statutory requirement for special elections versus the primary general process?
I'm not sure that I understand the.
Well, we want to hold this in consistent with state law. And we were told there have to be certain time frames and timelines, and our attorney spoke, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand what those timelines are so we don't violate them.
So there's, And I'd be honest, I'd have to go and look at the NRS specific to special elections. It's been a while since we've had one in Washoe County to speak to those specific requirements. What I can tell you in terms of general requirements for any election, of why we would say we'd need to start, in January, but that it would take all that additional time, is you do have to have the requirement for the candidate filing period. For special elections, you have some flexibility as to what that timeline is. But from there, we have to work on the creation of the election. That's working with our vendors to create the election, the ballot. We have to create sample ballots, send those to our vendors to be printed and mailed out to residents. The creation of a mail ballot to be printed and mailed out to constituents. We have timelines that are required for programming of the voting machines to be able to use those machines. They have to be tested, they have to be programmed. All of that takes a large amount of time. That takes several months for us to really complete. On a special election, we could do that in a slightly more expedited manner because we don't have as much on the ballot, right? I'm gonna have one office with an unknown number of candidates, not multiple offices, not multiple rules related to who you'd be voting for and how you'd be voting. But those are some of the statutory things that I have to do in order to conduct an election. And so when we talk about the timeline, what we built into that was the ability to meet all of those requirements that I have to do before I can hold any election, special or regular election.
Right, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Okay.
And I appreciate our clerk figuring out the sound system. Good job.
All right, any more questions from, to Jamie? Seeing that there are none, then in the interest of time, I'm going to ask for a motion on this item. I am going to say, listen, I am not opposed to special elections at all. I am opposed to, though, keeping this vacant that long. That is a really, really long time. And I think Councilman Reese made a really good point in the sense that bodies do appoint all the time. Present presidents and past presidents have done the same thing. Other bodies do it all the time. And then what would happen is, then I also like the fact that we would bring everyone in on an appointment so everyone can meet the candidates. I would also say, tell everyone you possibly can in Ward 5 to come and apply. We want to see a lot of candidates come forward and also meet them. I think that that's really important. And not to mention, because it is, a smaller percentage of the ward, I wish it was citywide. I do think that that should change. I've always been against ward only. So anyway, I'm gonna send it to Councilman Reese.
Madam Mayor.
Go right ahead.
I
Councilman
still did want to have a question, if that's okay.
Go.
So thank you.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I did want to talk about the appointment process and have if staff would go over that again, because I think that if we, I feel like we can't wait for a special election. I just feel that the placement needs to be sooner than later. But can we go, because that process in my mind really is about the public being involved because of how we do it, and we do hear from the public as well. So are from our constituents, from the constituents of Ward 5. And I think we bring that all into a good process.
I'm going to just ask our city
what we're
attorney. Mr. Hall, would you like us to take a motion and then talk about what that looks like? What's best for you?
I think whatever you would prefer.
Okay.
I don't think you can talk about the process and then take the motion. That might give you additional information.
Okay, thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, you want to give us some information?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So specific to Councilmember Weber's question, and I don't know, Councilmember Weber, if you can see the timeline that's up on the screen or that's being shared via Zoom, but essentially, starting on Monday, if we move forward with the appointment process, starting on Monday, we would accept applications from Monday to Friday. Those applications would be uploaded to the Reno.gov website every single day so that just like we do for candidate filings, those in the public, our council members, everybody has the ability to review the applications and see who's applying. On August 25th, council will meet and narrow the results and select finalists for the position. The week of August 29th, we would hold 2 meet and greet sessions for constituent engagement. And then finally, on September 7th, we would review, or council would interview the finalists and make an appointment.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't get that week of August 29th where we have the public participation. So I think that's really a good one too. So thank you very much, and I will wait for the motion.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's interesting. Either way, we go to a special election, people will say, oh, you didn't have anyone sitting in that seat for 8 months, almost a year, right? Then we go to appointment, it'll be out there, you guys are corrupt. It's sort of the narrative that you hear today. So either side, you kind of don't win. So I want everyone to know it's always, those are always tough decisions. But what I would say, like I said, I want you guys to encourage everyone you possibly can in Ward 5 to put in for this seat. Really, really important, for one. For two, we'll have the meet and greets. You also, all of us up here are very accessible. If you have a candidate that you really like, put your support behind them. That's important. Be a part of the process, not just this one time. Because, many of you I see all the time, and I appreciate you coming, but some of you I haven't seen before. So get involved in the process, because really that's what's going to help all of us as a community make those decisions and make a better community. Even then when we don't always agree, we have to be respectful and be kind to each other. I think we've lost our way in some of these difficult times. So, let's, like I said, either way, this council will be called one or the other. You know this. Can't win, Mr. Lorton. So you know how that is. It's just tough, So I want everyone to understand. Anyway, I'm going to send it to Councilman Reese. Give me a motion. Wait, one more thing. I do want to say something. I'm really interested in, doing some of the research that people had sent to me. I will say I was pleasantly surprised about the cost of having an election. So I think that is a good thing, because I had heard, it's $500,000. So I do want to know, who does pay for that in the special election? The city of Reno?
The general fund, yes.
The general fund?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Okay. All right, Councilman Reese, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to fill the vacancy in the Ward 5 council seat through an appointment process and direct staff to move forward with the timeline as presented, including the public comment periods in the 29th,
All right.
week of the 29th.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Reese. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Delgado.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Discussion, Councilwoman Dewar.
Yeah, thank you. I came here very clearly in favor of having a special election. That's what I plan to vote for. I thought about it, I'd analyzed it, I did research, except I didn't speak to our county clerk or chief elections officer. I'm extremely disappointed to find out the timeline. I had expected one way or another, we could have a person in the seat by November, December, one way or the other, in parallel or after or in between or something. And that's what I came here with. Even if it had been January, I was prepared to accept that. But what we've just heard from her is we're looking at April and 8 months of vacancy. And I don't know that serves well either. That's what's really bothering me, is to have a vacancy this long. So I'm going to just repeat some things I said. I think that democracy demands elections. I think we are, by our charter, by our position, set up to do appointments. It's our duty, whether we have ward-only voting or not ward-only voting, it's our job to pick the best candidate. We've done a pretty good job so far. We didn't just appoint these people, we appointed judges as well. Despite what you presented to us. I'm really I'm very much struggling, but I want to support the effort. I want to get a person in there. And it is not my preference whatsoever, but at this, I could vote no and it still passes. And I'm not wired that way. I want to support the team. I want to get this done. So I'm expressing my personal belief that, you know, if at all possible, and if it was even possible today, I would be asking our manager to go have a conversation with the clerk and review all of the, to the county and review, is this all set in stone? Is this must be? Is there any way that we could change these timelines, speed them up, add extra staff, get temporary staff, do whatever it took? I mean, that's where I would be coming from. You know, but I am not her. She's in this job. This is what she does. And so I have to take, you know, what she said as how it is. And so, you know, I guess I will be prepared to support the motion very reluctantly. So that's where I stand.
All right, thank you. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Madam Clerk, right back at you.
Thank you. I believe that takes us to item C, our final public comment. And bear with me one second while I get this squared away. I do not see that we have anyone in. If it's okay with you, we'll have a speaker who can fill out the card afterwards. Okay, you can speak and then fill out afterwards.
Sure, no problem.
Hi, for the record, George Eddie Lorton. And I am disappointed in the process, and it seems like maybe, I appreciate your comments, Naomi, that we could have a conversation with the county manager and they will find a way. So I would hope maybe we could have another discussion about this, because truly, now as divisive as everything is, it's more important now. Here people try to accuse people of not believing in the process, but yet we want the process, don't you? So this is the way to have the process. So I would hope that possibly, you know, you can do a thing called reconsideration too, and then we could bring it back to the table maybe after a conversation. I know this stuff inside and out, so we can make it happen. See, it's cheaper than you thought. We spend money like water. I mean, on pet peeve projects, we have tons of different things we do, where this is one of the most important things we can do. So I'm just hoping, if you want to bring the public back in the process and bring the public in politics, I'm for it. I don't think, 6, 7 people here should decide for that ward. And before, I've thought they've appointed their yes person, to be honest, and stuff like that. So, through that way, I think that would take that away from, put it in the public's hands, and I don't see what's wrong with that. And then when people mention where they did all these appointments and stuff, well, there's been special elections too, and there wasn't a timeline on those appointments, but there's been many special elections as well. So I'm hoping that maybe we could resolve it. It's a new day, it's a new time. Things are terrible, it's hard, it's weird that people like us sign up for things like this, and I'm sure you being through it, you know what we've been through. So, but here I am again, I'm persistent, consistent, I don't give up. And I think one day it's going to pay off. I think hopefully I can do a great job here. But in the meantime, we're relying on everybody here to hopefully do the right thing for once. I'm asking, and reconsideration could happen within a week, and we could maybe talk to the county manager. Anything can happen. Anything's possible. I don't see why not have another side card if they can't put it on the forms, and just streamline the process or something. If you ask people, it's amazing what they can do. So thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Eddie. Thank you.
Penny Brock, followed by Renee Resentes.
City Council members, Penny Brock, Ward 2. I have attended earlier this year 4 county commission meetings on the election process. I have studied AB 321 that gave us our current voting process. In that law, it allows for paper ballots and hand counting the ballots. It is up to the decision of the county commissioners. Perhaps one option is to have this special election even on the general election day by paper ballots and hand counting the ballots. We know probably the turnout will not be that great in Ward 5, that it couldn't be done. I'm just proposing that that would be one option to get it done in the general election. by paper ballots and hand counting. And this would be up to Mr. Hall, legal counsel, to decide that, but I'm just proposing that that would be one option to perhaps get it done at the general election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Penny.
Renee Rosentis.
Hello, Renee Rosentis for the record. I also was thinking that something like the paper ballot with the hand voting, hand count, I think it would be great to do that. I mean, it would almost be like an experiment, almost, even though we used to do it all the time. But since we haven't for a long time and relied on the machines, this would be a great experiment. So also, I really appreciate, Councilwoman Doer, your comments and about maybe reconsidering and looking at everything first, because I know that Jamie had to step in at the last minute. She doesn't have a lot of experience, and I think that in going through the process that Councilwoman Doer suggests, not only will she become more educated about what can be done, but all of you will also. And I would really appreciate that. I would really, really appreciate that. So I'm with Eddie Lorton. I like the fact that there are other ways to go about this. I especially would love for you to go to the registrar and have these meetings. So thank you.
Not be surprised if that happens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Mayor, with that, we have no additional public comment. However, I should state for the record that we did receive 7 comments after 4 p.m. yesterday, or either general in nature, 1 in opposition, and 6 concerned. Those have been distributed to the council and will be uploaded to the meeting portal at the close of this meeting.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor?
Go right ahead, Councilwoman Doer.
I thank you for allowing me to make a public comment. I just, you all heard what I said. I don't need to say it again. I'm disappointed we have to go this way, but I think it is in the best interest of Ward 5. But I am counting on the people in the audience that have written into us to get involved in this process, to meet these candidates, whoever self-selects. They'll probably have something like 2 weeks to apply. Encourage good people to come forward. It is a hard job, I have to tell you. It is a time-consuming job. It is not a simple job. They might have to quit their other job if they want this job. I mean, it is a
And
very...
everything you do is wrong. Make sure you have
There's
that in
that
there.
too.
Everything you do is wrong.
But I want to make sure, since we're in this position, that we pick the very best representative for Ward 5. And if there was an election, there would be a lot of different opinions, right? If there was, and I think Councilmember Reese was right, if there were 100 applications for an at-large, there's probably going to be 20 applications at least for the Ward 5. So I would just beg you to get involved, to meet them, find out about them, send us your thoughts. I'm very open to hearing what you have to say. I'm a pretty good interviewer, and I plan to do those, utilize my ability to screen out people and evaluate them and their integrity and their commitment to job. So I just wanted to go on the record, and I think everybody here will do that. I think we'll all work really hard to get a good representative for Ward 5. And I'm going to be very involved in the process, even though we're very short on time, given everything else that's on our plate. But right now, this just rose to the top of my plate. This is so important. Thank you.
And if any of you are Ward 5, you need to sign up. All right. Anything else?
That's it, Madam
Madam
Mayor.
Clerk,
Just looking
okay.
for a motion to adjourn.
All right. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. What would we do if we didn't approve that motion? Would we all stay here all day? All right, thanks.